The familiar Hot Topics table had hosted countless unforgettable conversations over the years, but this morning carried a noticeably different atmosphere. Normally, the discussion flowed with warmth, humor, and honest debate. On this day, however, the mood shifted the moment Meghan Markle settled into the guest chair. The audience sensed it immediately. Conversations quieted, eyes stayed fixed on the stage, and an unusual tension settled across the studio. Whoopi Goldberg opened the interview with the same calm professionalism she brought to every guest. Her questions were straightforward, current, and entirely expected for a daytime talk show. Yet as Meghan answered each one, Whoopi's expression subtly changed. There was no anger or confrontation in her face. Instead, there was careful observation, as though she had begun noticing inconsistencies beneath the polished delivery. Whoopi had spent decades interviewing celebrities, politicians, and cultural figures from every background imaginable. Her journey from a difficult childhood to becoming an acclaimed entertainer had sharpened her instincts. She understood when someone spoke naturally and when answers felt carefully rehearsed. The audience couldn't quite identify what she was seeing, but they sensed that something had shifted. Then came a brief pause that seemed to freeze the room. Whoopi leaned forward, delivering a short remark that left the audience silent. For the first time during the interview, Meghan's confident smile appeared to fade ever so slightly. The conversation had entered a very different territory. The View studio buzzed with its usual morning energy. The audience applauded enthusiastically as Meghan was introduced, and she greeted each host with polite embraces before taking her seat. Everything appeared perfectly planned, from her composed posture to her camera-ready smile. "Let's begin with something recent," Whoopi said. "Your visit to the United Kingdom drew enormous attention. For years, there were public discussions about security concerns making visits extremely difficult. Now we've seen another trip take place. What changed?" Meghan answered calmly that circumstances had evolved over time. Whoopi nodded but continued. "Can you explain what evolved? Many people are trying to understand how the situation became manageable after so much public concern." Joy Behar gently suggested that changing circumstances could naturally improve over time, but Whoopi remained focused on seeking clarification rather than assumptions. Sarah Haynes added that arranging international family visits often involve lengthy planning and complicated logistics. Whoopi acknowledged the point but replied thoughtfully. "Complicated situations deserve clear explanations. That's what viewers are hoping to understand." The discussion then shifted toward Meghan's relationship with her father. Whoopi noted that the subject had remained in public conversation for years and asked whether reconciliation had ever been considered. Meghan described the relationship as complicated. Whoopi reflected on her own upbringing, explaining that many families carry painful histories and difficult experiences. She emphasized that every family story is unique while asking what continued to prevent healing after so much time had passed. Sunny Hostin reminded everyone that family estrangement is often deeply personal and far more complex than outsiders can fully appreciate. Whoopi agreed but observed that accountability also mattered. She noted that public discussions had frequently highlighted strained relationships across multiple parts of Meghan's life, including relatives and former associates. Rather than making accusations, she suggested that recurring patterns naturally invite questions from the public. Meghan firmly disagreed with that characterization, saying it was unfair. Whoopi clarified that she wasn't attempting to judge anyone personally but was pointing out why many observers continued asking similar questions. The interview then turned to another highly discussed topic, online rumors involving Meghan and Prince Harry's children. Whoopi condemned the conspiracy theories outright, describing them as harmful and irresponsible. Meghan strongly agreed, calling the speculation offensive and unacceptable. Whoopi then explored why such rumors continued circulating despite repeated denials. She suggested that the couple's understandable desire for privacy, combined with their frequent public appearances on other issues, had created curiosity among some audiences. Meghan responded that protecting her children remained her highest priority. Whoopi acknowledged every parent's right to make personal decisions but asked why their approach differed so significantly from other royal families whose children occasionally appeared at carefully managed public events. Joy appeared hesitant about continuing the discussion, suggesting they move forward, while Anna Navarro concluded by reminding viewers that every family chooses its own balance between privacy and public life. The audience listened closely as the conversation ended without simple answers, leaving plenty for viewers to debate long after the cameras stopped rolling. The conversation grew noticeably heavier as the discussion turned toward one of the most debated aspects of Meghan's public life, her family's privacy. Anna Navarro remarked that every parent has the right to decide how much of their children's lives should be shared with the public. Whoopi Goldberg nodded before offering a different perspective. Every parent deserves that choice, she said evenly. But when public statements emphasize extraordinary risks while leaving many questions unanswered, people naturally become curious. Consistency matters. The audience remained silent. Whoopi continued carefully. Your children have had very limited contact with members of the royal family. King Charles has reportedly met them only briefly. They barely know their cousins or much about that side of their family. Many people wonder what is being protected. Meghan answered without hesitation. We're protecting them from an institution that caused us tremendous pain. Whoopi paused. Children don't experience institutions the way adults do, she replied. They experience grandparents, cousins, family gatherings, birthdays, and memories. That's why people struggle to understand where the line is drawn. Sarah Haynes gently suggested that emotional wounds often require years to heal. Whoopi acknowledged the point but observed that every passing year represents another decision. Time changes circumstances, but every missed birthday, every holiday apart, and every family moment that never happens becomes part of that story. Meghan's voice became firmer. You don't fully understand what we went through. I understand what has been shared publicly, Whoopi answered. The interviews, the documentaries, the books. What I don't understand is how those conflicts eventually stop affecting the adults while continuing to shape the children's relationships. The discussion shifted when Meghan brought up an earlier disagreement between them. You've criticized me before, she said. You commented on my experience with Deal or No Deal and suggested I should simply have accepted the role for what it was. Whoopi smiled calmly. I remember that conversation, she replied. My point wasn't to dismiss your feelings. It was that many performers begin their careers by taking opportunities that aren't perfect. That's part of building a career. Meghan insisted her feelings about the experience were genuine. They absolutely were, Whoopi answered. But two people can look at the same experience very differently. What one person sees as limiting, another may see as an opportunity that helped open the next door. Joy Behar stepped in, reminding everyone that personal experiences are always subjective. That's true, Whoopi agreed. But public conversations also invite public discussion, especially when someone chooses to revisit those experiences years later. Leaning slightly toward the table, Whoopi reflected on her own journey. I grew up with very little, she said. No famous family, no powerful connections, no guaranteed opportunities. I performed wherever I could, accepted jobs that simply paid the bills, and kept working until bigger opportunities came. Every step mattered because it helped me reach the next one. She looked directly at Meghan. Your life changed dramatically after marrying into one of the world's most recognizable families. That's simply a fact. It brought enormous visibility, influence, and opportunities that very few people ever receive. Sarah attempted to soften the exchange. She was an actress before meeting Harry. She certainly was, Whoopi replied. But the scale of global attention increased dramatically afterward. That's the distinction people are discussing. Meghan responded quickly. I had accomplishments before Harry. No one is saying otherwise, Whoopi answered. The question people ask is how much of today's platform exists independently of that marriage. The conversation then shifted toward Archewell. I built that foundation, Meghan said confidently. Whoopi nodded. Foundations are measured by outcomes. After several years, people naturally ask what specific results can be pointed to. Which programs have expanded? Which communities have benefited? What measurable changes can be highlighted? Meghan answered that the organization focused on long-term systemic change. Sunny Hostin observed that charitable work often takes years before its full impact becomes visible. That's true, Whoopi replied. But even long-term initiatives usually have milestones along the way. People appreciate concrete examples because they show progress. For a brief moment, the table fell silent. Whoopi finally broke it. Silence isn't necessarily an answer, but it often leaves viewers wanting more clarity. She then transitioned to another subject that had generated headlines. There have been numerous reports about changes involving business ventures and entertainment partnerships, including discussions surrounding Netflix projects and product branding. Public reports suggest those relationships evolved significantly. From your perspective, what happened? The audience leaned forward once again, sensing that another difficult question had just been placed on the table. Whoopi listened as Meghan described the end of several business partnerships as the result of different creative visions. She nodded thoughtfully before asking a follow-up. Creative visions change all the time in this industry, she said. But viewers are naturally curious about what actually happened. From the outside, people have watched several high-profile projects come to an end, and they wonder why. The audience remained quiet. Whoopi continued carefully. When one project doesn't succeed, that's business. When multiple ventures face setbacks, people begin looking for patterns instead of isolated explanations. Joy Behar stepped in, suggesting that entertainment partnerships are unpredictable and that even successful people experience disappointments. Absolutely, Whoopi agreed. No career is free of setbacks. But when the same questions keep surfacing across different ventures, audiences expect honest reflection rather than broad explanations. She mentioned the public discussions surrounding streaming partnerships, business ventures, and other highly publicized projects that had generated mixed reactions. Rather than focusing on rumors, she framed the issue around accountability. People aren't asking whether every project should succeed, she said. They're asking what lessons were learned when they didn't. Meghan calmly replied that she had fulfilled every commitment expected of her. Whoopi responded, "That's your perspective, and it's fair to share it. But audiences also judge outcomes, and those outcomes become part of the public conversation." The discussion soon shifted to another topic that had dominated headlines for months. "There has been enormous speculation about your marriage," Whoopi said. "Stories about separate schedules, different priorities, and constant rumors have circulated for quite some time. How do you respond to that?" Meghan dismissed the reports as tabloid speculation. Whoopi acknowledged that false stories often spread quickly in the media but noted that public interest tends to grow when famous couples have shared so much of their personal lives. "You've invited audiences into important chapters of your relationship through interviews, documentaries, books, and magazine features," she observed. "That naturally creates curiosity when later you ask for complete privacy." Sunny Hostin reminded everyone that public figures are still entitled to personal boundaries. "I agree," Whoopi answered. "Everyone deserves boundaries. The challenge comes when deciding which parts of life are shared publicly and which remain private. That's a difficult balance for anyone in the spotlight." Meghan answered firmly. "My marriage is private." Whoopi smiled respectfully. "Privacy is important," she replied. "But when personal experiences become central to public storytelling, people naturally ask follow-up questions. That's simply how public attention works." The conversation then broadened beyond individual headlines. "In nearly 40 years of working in entertainment," Whoopi reflected, "I've seen many different paths to success. Some people slowly build their careers one opportunity at a time. Others experience sudden visibility because circumstances place them on a much larger stage." She paused before continuing. "Neither path is wrong. Opportunity is opportunity. What matters afterward is how someone builds on it." Sarah Haynes gently reminded the audience that Meghan had established an acting career before marrying Prince Harry. Whoopi agreed. She absolutely worked before then, she said. But there's no denying that global recognition expanded dramatically after joining the royal family. That's simply part of the story. Meghan defended her achievements, insisting she had worked hard throughout her career. I'm sure you did, Whoopi replied. The public discussion isn't about effort alone. It's about how much of today's influence comes from personal accomplishments and how much comes from extraordinary circumstances. Ana Navarro attempted to ease the growing tension, noting that many successful people benefit from timing, relationships, or unexpected opportunities. That's true, Whoopi said. Almost everyone receives help somewhere along the way. The important thing is recognizing those opportunities honestly. As the discussion continued, Meghan appeared increasingly frustrated. I don't feel understood here, she said. Whoopi remained composed. My goal isn't to judge you, she answered. It's to ask the questions viewers are already asking. Honest conversations aren't always comfortable. Joy suggested that everyone pause for a commercial break before continuing. Whoopi looked around the table. We don't need to avoid difficult conversations, she said. That's what this program has always been about, asking thoughtful questions, listening carefully, and allowing audiences to hear the answers. Meghan rose from her chair, clearly signaling that she was ready to end the interview. This show used to feel more supportive, she said. Whoopi stood as well. Supporting someone doesn't always mean agreeing with them, she replied calmly. Sometimes support also means asking challenging questions with respect and giving someone the opportunity to answer them. As Meghan walked toward the studio exit, the room remained unusually quiet. Before the cameras cut away, Whoopi offered one final observation. Public opinion isn't shaped by a single interview, she said. It's shaped over time by actions, decisions, and consistency. Every public appearance becomes another chapter in that story. The studio fell silent as Meghan exited, leaving the audience to reflect on a conversation that had raised difficult questions without providing easy answers. The studio doors closed quietly behind Meghan as she exited the set. For several long seconds, the audience remained completely silent. The energy that had filled the room only moments earlier had disappeared, replaced by an atmosphere of reflection and uncertainty. Whoopi Goldberg looked around the hot topics table before breaking the silence. Well, she said with a measured smile, that was certainly a conversation. Joy Behar let out a slow breath. I didn't expect it to become that intense. Whoopi nodded thoughtfully. It became honest, she replied. Those aren't always the same thing. Sunny Hostin offered a more sympathetic perspective. I think she genuinely felt overwhelmed by some of the questions. Whoopi acknowledged the point. Maybe she did, she answered. But being asked difficult questions isn't the same as being treated unfairly. Public figures regularly face scrutiny, especially when they've chosen to discuss parts of their lives publicly. Sarah Haynes suggested that some of the topics might have been approached differently. Perhaps, Whoopi said. But our responsibility isn't simply to repeat someone's public narrative. Our responsibility is to ask thoughtful questions that viewers are already asking themselves. Ana Navarro quietly agreed. Accountability is part of every meaningful interview. Whoopi turned toward the audience. I've been sitting at this table for nearly 2 decades, she said. Over the years I've interviewed presidents, actors, musicians, activists, and people facing the biggest moments of their lives. Some conversations are easy, while others are uncomfortable. But the strongest interviews usually happen when people are willing to engage honestly, even when the questions are difficult. She paused before continuing. Today's discussion felt different because many of the answers stayed very broad. Whenever the conversation moved toward specific issues, the responses often returned to familiar themes rather than direct explanations. Viewers noticed that. Joy reflected on the exchange. She did seem genuinely upset by the end. She may have been, Whoopi replied. But difficult interviews are part of public life. They aren't meant to be personal attacks. They're opportunities to explain your perspective. The conversation gradually shifted toward a broader discussion about success and public perception. Whoopi reflected on her own career. "I came from very modest beginnings," she said. "There were no shortcuts waiting for me, no famous family opening doors. Every opportunity came from years of work, persistence, and accepting whatever jobs helped me move forward." She smiled. Everyone's journey is different. Some people build careers step by step. Others find themselves on much larger stages because of unexpected circumstances. Neither path is wrong. What matters is what you do with the opportunities you're given. The audience listened carefully. When someone receives extraordinary visibility, Whoopi continued, people naturally become interested in how that platform is used. They want to hear about achievements, lessons learned, setbacks overcome, and tangible accomplishments. Those are reasonable questions. Anna nodded in agreement. People respect honesty, even when the answers aren't perfect. Whoopi agreed. Exactly. Nobody expects perfection. They simply appreciate authenticity. As the cameras prepared to end the segment, the room remained unusually quiet. The interview had left plenty of unanswered questions, but it had also sparked a wider conversation about accountability, public image, and the challenges that come with living in the spotlight. Whoopi offered one final thought before the show moved on. "Real conversations aren't always comfortable," she said. "Sometimes they're challenging. Sometimes they're messy. But if we're willing to ask sincere questions and listen carefully to the answers, everyone has the opportunity to understand a little more than they did before." The studio audience applauded softly as the hosts prepared for the next segment. For viewers at home, the discussion would likely continue long after the credits rolled. Whether people agreed or disagreed with the questions, one thing was certain: the interview had become one of those television moments that would keep audiences talking, debating, and drawing their own conclusions. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'll be back with more conversations that explore the stories everyone is talking about.